So a month or so ago, I was given this Terratek 6-inch grinder from a friend from work who didn't need it anymore, and since I didn't have one, he decided to give it to me. So I appreciate that, Tom. Thank you. And the first thing I want to do is, it has grit and stuff because it was down in his unused garage section or such. So I want to see if I can get it cleaned up and cleaned off. And the one thing I did notice, it does turn on and run, but the wheels wobble slightly. Like the grinding wheels go, they're not centered. And I don't know that I'm holding it still enough to be able to see. Let's try it. Can't spin it that way. Let's see if this works. It is very hard to hold something still when you're trying to spin it with the other hand, even. I think you can see that that's moving, or I should say, you can see that it's moving. I'm thinking you can also see that it's wobbling slightly. Everything I have lately seems to wobble. The pulley on the cutter grinder, these wheels. So first I want to see if, because maybe they're not centered correctly, and so I'm going to take the shrouds off, try and carefully take the wheels off, and then see. Hopefully it's not that the shaft is bent. Maybe it's just that because the wheels have a certain size hole, and if it's not centered correctly, maybe it's just not centered right. Oh, you can also see it this way, assuming I hold it still. Yeah, you can see that going in and out. That's why I think it's not centered, because the wheel moves. Let's see if this one do it too. That one not quite as much, but the smaller one definitely moves in and out. So we'll see what happens and go from there. And now to take it all apart. So I just followed the different screws and bolts and things and took them all apart. One question I do have, if anyone out there knows the answer to this, this is a 6-inch by 3/4 inch thick grinding wheel with 1/2 inch arbor, or a hole in the center. And my question is, if I want to go to CBN wheels, and those are sometimes 1 inch wide or 1 inch thick, will that work on this grinder? That I don't know. And there I was initially going, and I was turning it the wrong direction, and then eventually figured out, it's like, oh crap, I'm doing this wrong. So I opened it before I broke things, so that's good. But anyway, does anyone know if the 1 inch thick wheels will fit on this kind of grinder? And the good news is, the shafts were not bent, so that's cool. Well, I figured out part of the problem. There were 2 sizes of wheels on there. One was a fine grit, general purpose, 6-inch by 3/4 inch thick by 1 inch hole, and one was a 6 by 3/4 by 1/2 inch hole, and the 1/2 inch hole matches the size of the arbor. I think that's the arbor spindle, the post that spins, whatever that's called. And this one was a 1 inch hole, and it had these plastic spacers in. Well, 2 things. One, the plastic spacer moves around enough to cause issues, and 2, because there's a bunch of different pieces of plastic, of course I jammed it in there and now I can't get back out. There's a bunch of different rings, which is kind of cool because that way you could use different size wheels, but that would give it just enough movement at high speeds that would cause the wheel to wobble like it wobbles. So I think that is the issue. Yeah, you can kind of see that's enough wobble that would cause the wobble I was seeing. So the good news is, when you turn it on, there's lights, which is nice, but the shaft is rock solid. It is not bent at all on either side. And the lights are cool. So the fact that the shaft is not bent, now I know grinder is good. Thank you, Tom. I just need to look at getting different wheels. Would this work? Yes, but even if I dressed it, it's possible that it would still have issues over time, like just due to the plastic. And I could make a spacer, but the problem with making a spacer, like the reason you would not want to put a spacer in here that would expand and contract and put any pressure on the wheel is if that causes a crack, the wheel can explode. That's a bad day. Plastic may expand and contract, but it's soft and it will give, versus the stone, it won't cause cracks. Because I thought about it's like, well, hey, I could make it out of aluminum. No, aluminum expands and contracts, and that would be just enough, and just with my luck, that with it on hot days versus cold days, if it was a nice fit, it would crack the wheel and break it and then cause problems. So I will go look and see if I can find some additional wheels. This one is a 1/2 inch, so this one might be okay, but if I'm going to look and getting a replacement wheel for one side, I might as well look and see about getting it for both. And the other thing I was thinking is maybe I'll see if they have those CBN wheels for 6-inch grinders, because those don't ever change size. Those you don't ever need to dress. They just work. And that would be perfect for me for not having to play with one more thing. And then I can just clean up the fact that some of the bolts have a little bit of rust on. Clean that all up, paint that all up, and then we're good for a long time. That's going to be part 1. We'll see if there's a part 2 depending on what I find.